And welcome everybody to FNWhitePeople, your friendly neighborhood white people. Today we have with us a local activist specifically to Montgomery County, but also to just Tennessee at large, Karen. So Karen, tell us a little bit about the activism that you do.
Whoa.
What?
Don't introduce me at all. Jeez.
Everyone knows you. No one cares.
And the famous Harry is here. So I am a former city council person, and I started out as an activist for the LGBTQ, and I don't know if people have heard of Indivisible.
Yes, I'm a member of Indivisible.
Yeah, so Indivisible, I was the original founder of Indivisible in 2017 after number 45/47 was elected. And, initially we were fighting the Trump agenda, protecting healthcare, standing up, and turning the Tea Party tactics, showing up to town halls, holding our elected officials accountable. And that was in 2017 was one of the first slate of hate against the LGBTQ community led by then State Senator Mark Green. And that's one of the first times I made it into the paper because there was a statewide call to activism, and we showed up, and there we were on the front page of the Leaf Chronicle. Indivisible is a nonpartisan. We encourage people to show up where you believe. Like, we're not there to convince you, and we're not there to argue. But if you believe in healthcare or you believe in the LGBTQ rights, human rights, we're a platform for all of those things.
If you have more,
you will.
Yeah.
That's where you and I met in the original. Harry, didn't you and I meet in Indivisible when we first started it, or at the Democratic Party?
you and I met in 2016 when I decided to join the Democrat Party.
Oh, that's right.
Be a part of the Democrat Party, and then I realized after being there for a little bit that in our little town of Clarksville, Tennessee, like most politics, it's very cliquish.
I would tell you that
and very niche.
The local party has truly evolved, and it is not the party of 2016. It is. We have like 6 caucuses, 8 caucuses, the LGBTQ caucus, grassroots. Elections. It is really, when you show up to a meeting now, there's about 30 to 40 people and lots of people online at least. And it's really grown, evolved, and it's really much more welcoming than it was in 2016. I remember I've been a member of the party, active probably since 2012, 2014, somewhere in there.
Yeah, I didn't get into politics until, and spoiler alert, and it wasn't until our local atheist group got involved.
Oh, that's right.
In politics and things like that. And the atheist group that I'm involved in, or was involved in until certain things happened, where I was elected as the political part.
I followed that group. Clarksville Atheist, right?
Yes.
And then some stuff happened, but I was basically the politician for Clarksville Atheist, and then me and another gentleman, what the fuck was Robert something? I can't remember his name.
I don't know.
Him and I went to a lot of meetings and tried to do a lot of stuff, and I did a lot of stuff in the beginning, and then he joined, and then he decided not to join, and I continued because I met a lot of awesome people. You, Juanita, Jason Hodges, Justin Canoe, Kieran
Sherpada.
Thank you. And then a couple other people, but there was a couple people in that group that just like rubbed me the wrong way, and just it caused me to go into another room and just like explode into expletive, just profanity, and I'm just like, I don't want to be around you people if you're gonna cause me to just do this. Simply because, like...
Well, whenever you're in a group, there's always that way. There's always those.
In any large group of people, there's always going to be someone who you don't fucking like.
Yeah, and, I felt in the beginning, when I was getting into it, it was very niche. very cliquish, and we definitely had to fight. Like, because when I got started, when we elected the new chair, Kennedy Vox.
Oh, yeah. She was great, actually.
She was great.
Yeah, she was great.
But I felt a lot of pushback because at the time it was predominantly, and I know this is going to sound fucking racist as shit, but it was predominantly in that area. The Democratic Party was predominantly people of color. And then
the active members.
2016 came along, and then a bunch of white people came along and said, hey, no, we're not fucking cool with this. And then a bunch of white people came in and were like, yeah, no, we're going to get involved, because it was me, and then, was it David Boland?
Beelan?
David, yeah.
Byron.
He's like, Harry, we need your energy. And then you met me, and we're like, oh, no, we need your energy. We need your energy. I'm like, shit. Are you sure y'all are ready for me? And then, yeah, I got into it, and then apparently people were not ready for my energy.
So Clarksville Atheist is still a thing. Clarksville Atheist is not what it used to be, but it's still technically a thing.
That's a dumpster fire.
It's starting to reorganize a little bit, especially after the whole Horst incident, which we won't go into.
But we're not here to talk about religion and shit like that.
No.
We're talking about politics.
I was trying to get you off of your story of like how much you hate the Democratic Party.
You are a former, correct?
Former city
council person.
Yes.
And you are former because you ran against Bill Powers.
Right. So I served 4 years, and then when my 4 years was up, I decided to run for state senate instead of rerun for my city council seat for Ward 9.
Which is the proper thing to do instead of certain politicians
holding both seats. And I actually could have done both.
Not naming names, but pointing elbows at one Aaron
Mayberry. Yes.
Which I've got some thoughts about that.
Yeah, because doesn't he hold, isn't he also on the school board?
He's a school board member and a state rep. And they bought and paid that seat for the very reason that he would hold both. They invested $800,000 in his primary. In the primary, not even in the election. And that's because Governor Bill Lee knew that he would buy his vote on the on the school board as well as at the state level.
Yeah, but that is such a clear violation of ethics. Because
over and over again.
The school board is supposed to be completely nonpartisan. So you can't.
No, not anymore. So in our community, it used to be city council, county commission, and school board were nonpartisan, and the judges were nonpartisan. The Republican Party chooses to make it partisan.
Yes, but it's supposed to be nonpartisan.
Surprise!
But it is a choice. I think it was made in 2018. I don't remember if it was 16 or 18, and they make the choice every time to make it partisan. I personally don't believe that they should be partisan. I don't think our judges should be partisan.
I don't think our school board should be partisan because, like, that's literally our school.
Right, but it is.
Politics shouldn't, like, Republican, Democrat, Independent, whatever, shouldn't play a role in that. It should literally be just like, what can we do best for our children who are going to these schools in our county? And it's hard to say that you're nonpartisan in that.
Well, your vote matters, and your choice not to vote matters.
So let me get straight. So in 2016,
or your choice to vote third party matters.
So in 2016, when they served an orange taco,
so was it earlier than that? Because it was before that. Was he 16?
Yes, he was.
God, I cannot go back in time. So it was before that then, probably 14 or somewhere. But it's been, yeah. But it was already partisan when number 45 ran.
So all right, okay. But
I do remember when it flipped over. I just don't remember the year.
When I'm guessing though, it was a Republican held.
No, it was. If you recall, Tennessee was very blue until we elected, until President Obama, right? And then when it was time, it was like, oh hell no, we're not going with that, and the backlash. But Yeah.
Obama, the South, since the Civil War, said we'll never vote Republican ever again.
I want to remind you that Democrat and Republicans flipped.
Well, no. And
So to say, so when the Republicans say they are the party of Lincoln, that's not the truth. Because the party of Lincoln was Republican, but then the Democrats and Republicans flipped in the 40s and 60s over segregation.
Yes.
Yes, because racism wins.
Yes.
It shouldn't.
But it
it's a
did.
horrible fucking ideology.
Yeah,
Right.
but that's why we have Dixiecrats.
Yes. And we still have Dixiecrats.
But it didn't stop until Obama came along. Tennessee voted blue for the longest fucking time, and the South voted blue the longest fucking time until goddamn Obama came along, and then they're like, hang on a second.
We don't want a black man in office.
Yeah, even despite, he's not, and they will sit there and argue it, he's not all black, but at the same time,
Who cares? But
who cares?
Yeah.
Like his right, and they make that argument. They didn't want to vote for a black man, but his race really shouldn't matter. The fact that he's, not.
Despite the fact that, Ulysses S. Grant helped a bunch of fucking black people gain office after Lincoln, and then Andrew Johnson came along and okayed the KKK to just slaughter a bunch of politicians and federal employees. We'll get into another episode, but no, the South has always just kind of voted very pale-skinned.
Very white.
Very white, because
Male white. Let's be for
And
male
I'm gonna get into
and
that later.
white.
male, het, cis, Christian, white.
Yes.
Like, it's very specific. Because they don't want anyone who's a female or who identifies as female or whoever once was a female or who thinks that they might be a female. They don't want anyone who is part of the LGBTQ community at all. They don't want anyone who's not a Christian and a very specific set of Christians, because they want the hateful Christians, not anyone who would preach the actual things that Jesus taught.
Oh, they don't want anybody besides modern day Christians.
Well, I just ask since the beginning of time, when has Christianity ever stood up against fascism? When has Christianity ever sided with the people and against the power?
Historically speaking,
As a group, I'm not talking individuals. They sided with the Nazis.
They did.
They sided, during slavery.
Yep.
They sided with the slavers. Now, again, I'm talking historically as a group. I'm not talking individuals. People go, well, not me. Well, but your brother in the current, you know what I'm saying? So,
and some people will argue, but well, Jesus.
and women, the war on women is really led by Christians.
I have never been so happy in my life to have had a hysterectomy, because I know that I will never have to go to jail for having an abortion, because at this age in my life, let's be honest, if I got pregnant, I'm in my 40s. I have health issues. This isn't happening. But I've never in my life, because the war on women today, we're making The Handmaid's Tale into reality. There's a woman literally being kept alive by artificial means right now just because she's pregnant.
Against her family's wishes.
Against her family's wishes. It's not even what her family wants.
What state is that in?
If you hadn't asked me, I could have told you.
I think it's Texas, ain't it?
We are literally medically murdering women in our maternity beds, and we don't care.
Which is fucked up, because women are the cradle of human civilization.
But let's be honest, women in the state of Tennessee, it was a woman who proposed and sponsored the abortion ban. It was a woman. Women, do not vote.
Beat the patriarchy just like men can.
If women would vote in their own best interest, especially white women voted in their own best interest, we would not be in this boat right now.
No offense to the two women sitting at this table, but
Who are
white women,
but not all.
Yeah, but white women are
The worst.
the fucking worst. It was a white woman that caused the death of Emmett Till because of a
I
lie.
was literally just about to say that. Yeah.
Because of a fucking lie.
And not just Emmett Till,
He was a 13-year-old who was beaten to death and whatnot because a white woman said that he did some things, like came on to her and did some other things, and all he did was simply say hi. And because she went, no, he harassed me and things like that, it caused a group of white men to come along and just beat him and just do ungodly things to him and hang him and shit like that.
And he's just one story.
And, yeah, he's just one.
Because that is a tale that is as old as time, is this idea of like this white female purity, that you're not supposed to like look sideways at a white female, especially if you're not a white man. Like, 'cause if you're a white man, you can really do anything to anybody, and like you'll probably get away with it. But
let's get back to politics.
I think that's just politics.
But because I will say this, in the South, as much as this pains to say me, but in the South, unless you're Marsha Blackburn,
Oh my God.
like if you're a white woman running if you're a woman, period, running as a Democrat in the South against a white man, you will not win.
And the only reason she gets votes is because she hates not only women, but
she's a Republican. Well, she's a rhino.
But she hates women.
She's a conservative.
Well, you know that she has been labeled the most corrupt politician because she will, even before when she was a state rep, and then when she went into Congress, it was often said, if you want anything, you have to show up with a bag of money, or she's not gonna. I mean, she is.
Yeah, she's running against Bill Lee right now. There's talk says she's going to run against Bill Lee.
Well, Bill Lee
governor.
is termed out. Bill Lee can't run again. You can only be governor for 2 terms, and so it's an open seat. So,
wait,
did you know that Clarksville, we were talking about racial fires and profiling. In 1878, actually, the Great Fire of Clarksville was because they murdered a black kid for attempted violation of a white woman. So even in Clarksville, we have
I did not know that. I knew about and this is things that we should have been, because I was taught
the fire of 1878 in Clarksville that they talk about.
In high school, like we had this whole.
I didn't know there was a fucking fire in 1878.
Yeah, and they don't go downtown in the old part of town.
See, and you went to school in Montgomery County, so like.
I went to high school in Montgomery County.
In high school, I took a class that, granted, was an elective, but that taught the history of Tennessee, and that was not taught to me at all. I wasn't taught about the Tulsa race riots, which weren't even fucking race riots. It was.
Oh no, that was the U.S. government just fucking bombing.
I wasn't taught about, what was it, Philadelphia?
Yeah.
The Philadelphia bombing. I wasn't taught about that. Like, these are things that I think we should be taught in school about our own history, because our history, not only in Tennessee, but speaking to Philadelphia specifically, in this country, like we have a history of like doing whatever it takes to like just basically make racism.
Keeping the minority in check.
Keeping the minority in check.
Or
making
people.
sure that like.
Or the poor.
Yes.
Class.
No, the poor.
And the working class.
But they've used the poor against the poor.
They've weaponized the poor.
Well, I would say in today's world, we allow ourselves to be weaponized because the information is there. Clickbait. You choose what bait, and you can choose. Like what's going on. With our Hispanic and immigrant population is atrocious. It's
with the whole.
I'm trying to make this point, which is if due process doesn't exist for Jose from a Hispanic speaking country or a Latino country who came here illegally, then it can't exist for me, because you can't say that I'm here legally without checking my papers, which is a part of due process.
They're lying. Due process has always covered every person in the United States.
Because if it doesn't cover everybody, it can't cover.
Well, in the Constitution, it says every person. It doesn't say every citizen. It says every person.
It does, exactly. But the argument they're making now.
But remember, they denied due process to the African American black slaves. They denied.
That's why we had the whole 3/5. fucking.
They denied due process to the Japanese Americans during World War II when they.
That's why we ended up putting 150,000 something
Japanese
internment
camps.
not just Japanese, but anybody who looked Asian.
Right.
In internment camps, they called them internment camps instead of concentration camps.
But they were
They were fucking concentration camps.
Yeah, but my point is like the argument they're making is that like no, they meant like just American citizens, but it doesn't work that way. This is why, and I was saying this before we started recording, this is why we should stop teaching people what to think and start teaching people how to think.
Well, we can't do that.
If it doesn't work for the person who is here illegally, which I don't even agree with that terminology, but we're going to use their terminology. If it doesn't work for the person who's here illegally, then it can't work for me. Because you can't know that I'm a U.S. citizen without checking my papers, and that's a part of due process.
It's really, if the Republican Party was just not being racist and really wanted to fix the problem of having people here without the proper documentation to ensure that they pay their taxes, they would go after the people who pay them. They would go after the farmers who employ them. They would go after Smith in Nashville, who has his kitchens full of people that are not.
They would go after Kid Rock.
They would right. Instead, they allow those people to continue to evade taxes, break laws because they're white and have money, or they allow the white farmer to break the laws. And if they ended that and made a clear pathway into the country that is for the working individual, however you got here, here's your red card. Sign up, get your Social Security number, pay your taxes. Here's your green card. You have red, green, citizen, whatever. Create that pathway, whatever it looks like. And who cares how they got here? We could just do a clean sweep. And then when we find people here, if you're sweeping Nashville and finding people at their jobs, why do you not
arrest
employers? Why?
And it in my research, I have found it really kind of started with the Reagan era when he started the whole MAGA movement, because Trump does not have an original thought.
Yeah.
Because Make America Great Again started in.
This is what the Republican Party has wanted since
they recycled.
This is not jackass. This is the Republican Party. They have wanted this. They have campaigned on this. They own every bit of this racism, sexism, homophobia, and all
the xenophobia, just across
all
the
of
board.
these unchristian acts of what they're doing to
was it not Franklin Graham? Who is his father?
Franklin Graham?
Yeah, Billy Graham and the whole conservative movement, when they really got into the ear of Reagan, because Reagan was the one that kind of went for the whole border control and whatnot. Because before that, people south of the border can come in, get their green card, work. It was a much more
the process
controlled, but yet open flowed process.
Our elected
you come from the south, you come in, you work, you go back. Blah, blah, blah.
Our elected officials have not had the courage to vote for a new immigration policy in I think 40 years. Because it takes.
But we keep the law of Lady Liberty. Like, we have to come up with something.
No, we have one, but we know that it's broken. I'm not saying that the process isn't broken.
Oh, no,
I'm not saying that at all. The process needs to be fixed, but we need to elect officials that have the courage, and thereby there is the problem. Like, everybody goes, well, half of the people voted for Republicans and the other we voted for this. No, the real issue is 50% of the people in the United States did not get off their ass and vote. That's the problem.
Or they voted they voted third party, which means that, because that's the problem that we run into.
No. So of the people who voted, I'm talking about, we in America, in the United States,
only
probably
50% vote.
50 to 55%. It's even lower in some. We're the lowest in the country. In Montgomery County, we have the lowest voter turnout in Tennessee, which is the lowest voter turnout in the United States. In the United States, turnout is between 55 and 60%, depending. It's much lower in the South than in the North. So these elections are really decided between 20, like Trump might have gotten, and I'm just making up the numbers, and I don't know them exactly. He might have gotten, I'm just saying, 25% of the population vote. And then a third party got 3%, and then the Democrat got 22%. But that is of the population. He didn't get 50% of the population. The problem in America is a silent majority who stubbornly refuses to vote.
Because they don't know
They choose not to know. I don't let them off.
I think they're kind of programmed. I think they've been...
I think our political system has gotten so fucked in America that a lot of people just don't...
They don't apathetic.
Believe it doesn't matter. Like, because you can vote. Let's say you did vote for Marsha Blackburn. Like, I would never vote for Marsha Blackburn. But let's say you did. Like, there are so many of her own constituents that voted for her that are upset with her right now, and you see it all over Facebook.
But they still turn around and vote for her.
But she's like, why vote if the people you vote for aren't even going to do what you want?
Well, then why vote for that person?
Exactly. Well, that's exactly right. Why vote for that person?
It's because
that's true across so many fucking elected positions today that it's ridiculous, where you vote these people in and they don't do what you want them to do.
It's because we polarized it.
We have polarized it. And also, we've made it into this, like, launching of your career as opposed to just, like, doing a public good.
And we've also turned it into catchphrases.
That, too.
And that's... All right. And that brings me to a point which I watched this episode of this podcast called Flagrant. And I don't know if you know who Andrew Schultz is. He's a comedian. He's a bit controversial, but he had Pete Buttigieg on it.
Oh, I love him.
The episode that I watched, because everybody thought that Andrew Schultz was MAGA, and everybody that was a part of the Flagrant podcast was MAGA and things like that. And then they brought Pete Buttigieg on it, and it was like a 2.5, 3 hour episode. And I watched this, and I told Brandy after watching this, I was like, you need to watch this shit.
You showed it to me. We watched it together.
Part of it.
Yeah.
And like he was sitting there and he was like, okay, you're making a lot of interesting points here. But he pointed out to Pete, but you don't have something that grabs us. You don't have a build a wall statement. Even though build a wall means absolutely nothing. Like, people today need a catchphrase. They need something that they can get behind and stuff like that. And Pete was like, you know what? I absolutely get it. But here's my story. Because they touched in this episode, they touched with his political standing, his military standing, and his story of being a gay man, having to go through politics and things like that. And through the end of the episode, they were all like, fuck, we're liberals. Shit, we didn't realize this, but we're fucking liberals. And he's like, and Pete was like, yeah, I hate to break it to you guys. But at the same time, Andrew Schultz was like, but you don't have anything that grabs us. You don't have anything because, and that's one of the problems with today, is everybody wants something that grabs them.
I hear that, but...
because nobody has enough critical thinking skills.
When we ran for state senate in Montgomery County, the work that was done in 2025, this election year in 24-25, it was the most done in a long time. Knocking doors, mailing.
We donated to that.
All of those pieces, and we had a great lineup: Allie Phillips, Ronnie Glenn, Garfield Scott, and then me at the state, and then Megan at Congress. I mean, there were viable, and there was so much work done. I'm telling you, we did, as candidates, we did the work, but we did not budge the number. The number of people who showed out to vote did not budge. Ronnie still only won by 130 votes. with all the historical amount of money. So my question, like, if we were facing a community, it's like, if I knock on your door, if I mail you something, if I make phone calls, I'm on social media, I'm on the TV, what do you want? What does it take?
Catchphrase.
They want it into a bite because we've moved towards idiocracy.
We need a soundbite. We need a soundbite.
Towards idiocracy. People in America, and I say this lovingly of America because I don't think it has to be that way. I think there are plenty of people in America who are fucking intelligent enough to be critical thinkers, but we've moved so far away from critical thinking that we don't want an argument about why we want a soundbite. We want something that we can grab onto and be like, yes, I can just repeat this.
I would say that really they want to not be nice. They want to be mean. They want unkindness and meanness, and
they want a troll.
They want a troll.
And that was one of the reasons why, like, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
Well, when I was reading all the stuff about Aaron Mayberry and things like that, and I was just like, that man just gets under my skin so much.
And he will get reelected because of that.
And the thing is he will say stuff, and I'm just thinking to myself, I could easily destroy you with some of my comments. But the thing is if I were to run against him, all I would be doing is spreading chaos.
Well, the thing is, like, Aaron Mayberry is evangelical. He's a Christian. He is destroying public education for 90% of the people. 90% of the people in our community will go to public schools, and he is purposefully, with the backing of his Mosaic Church, destroying our public education.
And I would sit there, and because he has made some comments about, like, weirdos and things like that.
Exactly.
And I'm like, but if you look at it statistically, bud, the people who perform the most child abuse and rape and things like that are
Christian males.
Also people who look like you.
I mean,
you look like a pedophile more than I do, bud.
I don't want to throw that stone, but I will tell you that
I'll fucking throw it all day.
I would say that they are gleefully destroying our public. Gleefully.
Oh yeah,
dismantling
they are,
and bragging about it and relishing and look at us. And the only people that are going to get helped are the people that already go to public school. And I wonder, like, when Mosaic Church, he's a member of, who helped him get elected, will come out with their new school.
Yeah, and those whole school voucher shit that the voucher bullshit that Governor Lee passed, despite the community fucking speaking out and saying, no, we don't want this at all, because once we read into it, we realize that it's only benefiting those that have money.
But the
10,000.
But again, I would say he was up for election. Bill Powers was up for election. They were up for election, and the people who unanimously say they don't want it still showed up and voted for it.
Yeah,
60% of Montgomery County, my race, 40-60, I didn't budge the numbers. The same people who put him in after he lied the first time turned around and voted for him again.
Because he says the things that they
at some point, the community has to stand up, look in the mirror, and say, I did this and I am the fix. Until they're willing to do that, we're going to keep going down this path. Now,
I will say this, and I'm seeing more evidence of this, is we're seeing more evidence of people standing up. This is not what This is not what we voted for.
But it is exactly what they said they were going to do and what they voted for.
I think that we are at least seeing more people like coming to that, recognize it, like coming to realize that they're not doing what we said. Maybe we shouldn't vote for them again. And I say that in a very hopeful manner, because I'm hoping that, like, now that I'm hearing people on the right say, this isn't what I voted for, I'm hoping that next time they won't vote for it again, since I'm seeing more and more on the right
But the problem is like...
The thing is that they are saying what they want to hear, which comes down to a few key things. And it comes down to something that was done. Like, this isn't a new strategy. Right, like, this is something that was done to my ancestors. I'm like 90-something% Irish. And this is something that was done to, like, my ancestors way back in the early 1900s, like late 1800s, early 1900s, which is
before
we'll
that.
let you be white if you just turn against the black man.
Oh, that was like during the 16th century.
No.
17th century.
No, it was during the 1900s when they were like, you're going to be white.
Well, no. That happened before the Civil War. So that happened during the 17th or 18th century.
That it was still happening. What I'm saying is it was
during the Jim Crow laws. They really suppressed them during the early Jim Crow laws.
Yeah, they've done it again and again and again. Is my point.
Well, yeah, no, but it began before the Civil War.
They did it during the 1600s. They did it during the 1800s. They done it. They
Yes.
just keep making more and more people white so that they'll vote against like their own interest because they want to give them like, oh, well, you can be. And now the thing is like you can be the next Jeff Bezos because you're white.
You cannot
You just gotta vote.
But
you just gotta vote against the black man. But you're not going to be the next fucking Jeff Bezos. Like, let it go.
But as Karen pointed out earlier, it's also it's an attack against the poor.
It is an attack against the poor because my people, historically speaking, the Irish, and I'm saying in the 1900s because that's when like they predominantly attacked the Irish, or not to attack the Irish, but like brought the Irish on to be like quote unquote white, they were poor. They were poor. They were indentured servants. They were like the poorest of the poor minus the people who were still, like just coming out of slavery.
But so we
Propaganda is a crazy fucking...
propaganda is crazy, but at some point I continue to say to the community, you've got to own your vote. You've got to understand what you're voting for. Nobody can make you do that. I mean, I can come up with all the catchphrase, but I mean, the 50% of people that aren't voting, I need you to care enough to go vote. And I want people to recognize local politics matter. We are about to raise the taxes a third time in 4 years. Joe Pitts is about to raise your taxes a third time in a matter of 4 years.
Voting does matter, like, a lot, and I can't believe, like, I went to court and fought to be able to get my right to vote back. And they've made it harder to get your right to vote back. Because I did some research and I was like, oh, well, let me help other people, get their right to vote back.
They've
shut it down. A lot of people made mistakes when they were young or did like small crimes that turned into fucking felonies because we like to blow things out of proportion in this country sometimes.
Or the color of your skin.
Or the color of their skin, because if you do cocaine, it's a misdemeanor, but if you do crack, it's going to be a felony. Because
depending on the color of your skin.
That's what I'm saying, because crack is more commonly used.
Well, also depending on the color of your skin is cocaine as well.
Well, but my point being,
cocaine's a white man's drug, crack is a black man's drug, but unless you're a black man doing slinging coke.
If you're yes, but that's exactly right. That is my point. But I did some research and like, how can I help other people get to this point? They made it harder.
They did on purpose.
They made it harder.
They don't want felons.
The state of...
They don't want me to vote.
State of Tennessee has... What did I read? State of Tennessee has the most... I can't remember the exact... We have the largest number of people who are not allowed to vote in the nation. We have more people that are not allowed to vote than live in Montgomery County. Over 220,000 people. That's Montgomery County plus, but the number is even larger. And it's growing. Why? Because...
a lot of those people are poor and might not vote the way they want them to, but also they might vote for things that they don't want them to vote for. Like
But yet, even though they don't allow those people to vote, they will consider those votes, those people in consensus and shit.
And I read this, I think, in the New York Times. Tennessee also has one of the hardest paths back to citizenship of any state. Yes,
absolutely, 100%.
It is very hard. Like, it is so hard in Tennessee, and it used to not be.
It's cruel. It's cruelty. Cruelty has become the point of the Tennessee Republican Party. How low and how cruel can we go?
Which is shitty because in Clarksville, our hometown, there's a sign when you cross into Clarksville city limits that says "Welcome to the New South."
It is not the New South.
What's fucking new about it?
Seems like the Old South to me.
The New South is, well, we just don't speak about the old.
It's Fight Club rules.
The New South is, well, we don't let, Well,
look what the South is doing to women. I mean, we are not safe. I tell women, when a friend of mine gets pregnant, after I say congratulations and let things go, then I say, what's your path if things aren't going right?
Yeah, stay out of Tennessee or stay out of Texas.
Right. Or where will you go from here if something's not right?
Stay out of Georgia.
So I want to, I do want the people to know, like, we're talking about how things are, but you can make a difference. Every individual can make a difference.
So how do you think we get people to vote? Like,
I think
not everything. What do we do to get people to vote?
That's like, Harry, you came down. We had a booth at the farmers market one summer, just nonpartisan, talking about how important it is. You came down to that booth. We've Equity Alliance knocked doors and try to get people to vote. I don't know the answer to that question, but I will tell you that at a local level, if you have an issue, democracy works best at the local level. When a city council person or your county commissioner gets a letter, or the school board people get letters or calls, when 10 people to 15 people make a phone call, or 2 or 3 people show up to committee meetings, the tone and what is said changes. So I always encourage local people, I don't care if you vote or not, but if there's an issue, if they don't have a sidewalk, if you want a crosswalk, if you don't like that zoning coming in, go knock on doors with your neighbors, get a small group, and go have the conversation.
I will say
you
that
will make a difference.
I will say that my small stint in politics, we were pushing hard for bus stops having like benches or covers and stuff, and sidewalks and stuff. Like, we need more sidewalks. We need, like, if we're going to encourage people to ride the bus more, we need to at least give them a space to just sit out of the rain.
Without getting rained on and snowed on and wind
and I have seen an increase.
Yes.
In bus stop, awnings and things like that. Not even like
benches.
Full.
You think your voice doesn't matter, but you be quiet for a while and watch.
But now, and I will say this, Tennessee has now passed a law. Any new roads that have been built has to have a sidewalk.
Tennessee City Council, not I tried.
Montgomery County. Then.
Well, I rewrote that while I was on the council, and it failed 6-6. The mayor voted against sidewalks.
Mayor Pitts?
Mayor Pitts voted against sidewalks in 2024.
He's a fucking
6-6. They voted against sidewalks.
Slumlord.
And then they came back in and just passed a very narrow piece, but they did update it some.
And it's shitty because Joe Pitts is a Democrat, ain't he? Ish.
He's a dino. He's a Democrat in name only.
Yeah, he's whoever has like land developers, whoever gives in more. It's like Jeff Burkhart. That I've met that man, and
he's miserable
because I work in building trades, and I had to go to one of his sites and move some stuff, and he showed up, and he made a comment one time, and I don't want to give too much away simply because the company I work for, they know him, they speak to him, they're good friends with him, and he said something, and I gave him one of my looks. And anybody who knows me, if I look at you a certain way, you know that I immediately do not like you. I have nothing good to say to you, and my silence speaks volumes, and I'm just like. So
this is again like the community holding themselves accountable is what I'm saying. We all know that Jeff Burkhart has built in this community, and he has built communities that are underwater right now. And he's built without sidewalks because it's all about profit. We elected him to go to the state. Guess what the bill he did this year? As Clarksville continues to flood, he passed it at the state to allow people to build in more of the wetlands. Yeah. Which is going to cause more flooding instead of being part of the problem.
And they don't have retention ponds. And
retention ponds we are way past. As we infill in this community, retention ponds are they are not safe anymore. They're so darn deep, and we should not be building retention ponds. We need to be building a sewer system that moves the water, and we refuse to.
The company I work for, they waited to build onto their site because they wanted to see whether or not the new administration was going to make them build a retention pond. But because of their budget, they couldn't wait, and they end up having to build a retention pond and whatnot. And they're like, oh, well, this is going to cost us more. And the thing is, they want to build another. They wanted to build another building and another warehouse. And at the time, they're like, well, we're just going to wait. And now it cost them 3 times the amount at that time, 45's administration and now 47's administration, 3 times the amount. Had they went ahead and even though all of us, the lowly little employees that were just like, no, you all need to go ahead and just build this while you can, while the money's still good, go ahead and build it. They're like, no, we're going to wait. I'm like, well, you shouldn't wait. You really shouldn't wait. But they're like, no. And now they're like, oh, we can't because it's now going to cost us 3 times more. I'm like, well, I guess you should have listened to the fucking poor, stupid, dumb.
Brandy, what were you going to say?
Well, just I know that we have problems at the local level, and I think we can talk about local level politics all day. But we also have problems at the federal level. Oh. And one problem that we're facing right now is we don't have Biden anymore. Biden is very sick. And Biden, we can't vote for Biden again.
Also, do we elect somebody
Who do we elect? Who do we even run?
Yeah, Karen, who do we run against?
Let me say.
The dictator.
Let me just, here's.
Emphasis on dick.
Again, let me go back and just a little bit before we step forward. I want to remind again, when you don't show up to vote, when you don't vote, you cause just as much havoc. When President Biden, when there was a primary, there was a very strong group of people who were running. There was Buttigieg, there was, Harris, there was the woman from Minnesota, Klobuchar. I mean, Amy,
yeah.
Elizabeth Warren. There were options. The only reason that Biden made it through that primary is because people did not show up to vote. Because the young people did not show up to vote. So elections have consequences.
Who was that guy from Texas?
Oh, yeah.
The one who said fuck and everybody threw a fit.
Right, yeah.
But he was also the one that said, well, we should take away everybody's guns. Well, not take it away.
And he shot himself in the foot with his gun.
Andy, it wasn't Andy.
I know who you're talking about. I can see his face.
Yes, I know his face too. I just can't think of his name.
Yeah, he fucked himself when he was like, yeah, no, we need to take away fucking guns and shit. I'm like, oh, you just lost yourself there. Because this is a country built on fucking guns.
Well, how many children need to die before we have that hard conversation?
I agree.
Yeah.
Well, I'm probably the only person sitting at this table that fucking loves guns. I love guns. I think the science behind them, but at the same time, I don't think everybody should have access to, well,
I mean, I'm a soldier. I'm retired Army.
Yeah.
So I understand, but there was always hunting rifles growing up. There is a difference between a self-defense weapon and a weapon that's created to kill as many human beings as possible. Nobody needs to sling that on their back and go to Walmart. I'm sorry. It should not be.
I don't think bump stops and all that shit.
Right. Common sense, smart and safe gun owners want to live next door to smart and safe gun owners. And that's not there anymore.
I will sit here and say that I love guns. I love the science. I love the engineering. I fucking love guns. But I also think that guns should be regulated.
Right.
I think there should be common sense gun laws.
The Second Amendment says a well-regulated militia. But going back to who we're going to vote for.
Also, just real quick, a well-regulated militia does not mean that Joe Blow down the street can have a semi-automatic weapon.
Yes.
There's nothing well-regulated about that.
Well, in this country, a lot of people, I don't know if they did away with it or recently or something, but there used to be, you could own an automatic weapon, but you had to register it.
Well, I think it should be like car insurance.
It was registered with...
You should have gun insurance, and I think there should be
more... you should have classes. I think, when it comes to guns, it should be, and even though
There should be classes.
Well, I'm older than you
with
guys.
vehicles.
Let me just tell you, I'm older than you guys. So I remember in school, hunting, I grew up in Michigan, hunting season. When hunting season was coming around, every day teachers were saying, if you see a gun in someone's house, you go home. If you don't handle a gun, you don't point a gun. Every day in school, we talked about gun safety. Our parents talked about gun safety. Guns were not on the kitchen table unless you were cleaning them after going hunting. They were locked away somewhere. So, and we had classes. You signed up and took
Hunter safety courses.
Hunter safety classes, and it was all about weapons safety.
Now,
so what's wrong with that picture? Why? Why is that a problem?
I will say
I
this.
understand why there's a problem with people having to license any deadly weapon. Like you have to license
Right.
your
vehicle.
License your vehicle. You have to license.
That's a deadly weapon.
You're not allowed to just drive around with a car and let
Even
people
though-
operate it. Why are you allowed to walk around with a gun?
I should not.
I think there should be more fucking regulations on people driving.
I should not have to. I don't have to pay to clean up the mess you make if you drive. If you don't drive right and you're careless, your insurance pays that. So why, as a citizen, am I always paying to clean up the mess made by weapons? Those weapon owners are not cleaning up their own mess. When they go in with these mass shooters or they go in and they hurt people, we're paying for that as citizens.
And one of the things that I'd love to see is, I can't remember what state it happened in, but there was a child who took a gun to school and killed a bunch of people, and the parents were held accountable. Like
That's in
they
Michigan.
Actually, yes, and they actually are going, like either are going or have gone to prison because they were not safe with their weapons, and their child, who was obviously very disturbed, got a hold of these weapons and killed a bunch of people. And I think that's
Now, I will say
that's
this.
justice.
I'm about to be 42.
Life, the universe, and everything.
When I was a kid, I have not lived solely in Tennessee. Before I was 13, between the ages of 10 and 13, I lived in Oregon. We had hunter safety course. And now I will also say when I moved back to Tennessee, if I wanted to go hunting, I had to go through hunter safety course. But the hunter safety course in Oregon was a lot more involved than the hunter safety course in Tennessee.
So when we talk about these hot button issues like guns, right? So you're asking who's going to run for president. We've got to get them elected, and they're straddling this.
I also
fence.
think that we need to elect younger fucking.
I agree with that. But what does that mean? That younger people have to show up to vote.
But I also think
Vote.
younger people who are going to run definitely need to, with the generations and shit that's happening, they're going to need a soundbite. They're going to need a clip.
Well, I mean, that's part of marketing, right? We do need that. But I mean,
I think our best bet right now,
here's my soundbite: anybody but Trump.
and this is just my personal opinion, is Buttigieg.
I would love Buttigieg. I think he reaches across the aisle. I think he talks to people who we as Democrats historically just don't want to talk to. Because I do think that we've run into this problem of we've run into the progressive problem of we want to be so progressive that we don't want to talk to people on the other side of the aisle because they don't agree with us and we just want to argue with them. And I think Buttigieg does a wonderful job of reaching across that aisle and saying look.
That's why Fox News doesn't want Pete on the fucking channel anymore.
I get what you're saying.
Because they're not smart enough to have a conversation with him.
True. But
They're smart enough not to have him on the fucking channel anymore.
I think Buttigieg gets to the heart of what actually can unite the majority of Americans, which is I don't think we want to be an oligarchy. I don't think that's what we want. I don't think we want to be a technocrat society either. I think we want to be an actual fucking democracy. I think most people want that. And I think that Buttigieg can speak to those people to get them to be look, the gay man isn't hurting you. The big black man isn't hurting you. What is actually concerning to you, and how can we address that problem?
That's why I don't think AOC should run.
She's actually number one on the list of the Hill. I looked it up.
And see, here's the thing. And I say this with all due respect and everything, because I do believe women have every chance of fucking doing the job and shit like that. But if a woman as a Democrat tries to run, she won't win. especially in the South. You're a test to that, Karen.
I don't think so. I think that's a problem. I don't think
No, that is definitely a problem.
But that's a problem for women too. I mean, women are our own worst enemies.
And
Women can be
especially
a part of the patriarchy just like men can.
We are part of the patriarchy. Not can be. We are part of it. And sometimes we're the most brutal enforcement of it.
Oh yeah.
and that's another reason, like,
So I'm not disagreeing. I think when we think about it, we have to think about electability. I mean, if Trump gets to run again, I'm just saying President Obama gets to run again too. I'm just saying.
and if he does, shit.
I mean, if we can have a third Trump presidency, which is technically unfucking constitutional,
Constitutional.
then we can have a third Obama presidency. And
Well,
I'm
we-
here for that.
I mean, if the big beautiful bill passes, which I hope it doesn't, it gives him the right to disregard elections.
It's awful. It is awful. It is a practice of,
Dictatorship,
and nope, not that, but
because that's what he wants to be.
Republican coward. Honestly, no. This is what the Republican Party wants. We keep saying him. Trump did not write
He's
that
a
mess.
byproduct.
He did not write it.
Yeah.
He's not smart enough. He is only standing there enriching himself. That's all he cares about. But he has all the authors of 2025 on his staff. And this is what the Republican Party has been running on for decades.
Project 2025.
Which
This
has
is-
been a...
So this is I don't say Trump anymore. The Republican Party is
I
doing
don't even
this.
say
Trump
Republican
doesn't
Party.
have-
I think Conservative Party.
No, it's all Republicans. I don't care what you are. If you are still voting for this, you own it. I don't care if you say I'm not a conservative, I'm not that kind of Republican. If you at any point would still line up and vote Republican or call yourself a Republican, you own this mess.
Well,
Like, I love that because, like, I've had people, that I know tangentially because I try not to hang out with people who are anti-LGBT, but I know people who tangentially who were like, well, I didn't mean to vote against gay rights. It's just that I voted for this other thing. And I'm like, but you voted against gay rights. And you need to own that.
Right.
When your brother-in-law doesn't get to be married to the love of his life anymore,
You did that.
you did that, and
Well-
you need to own that. You need to own the destruction of that marriage.
didn't Mitt Romney come out and say that he's adamantly against this? And he's a Republican.
But he is still voting along party lines mostly.
Is he, though?
Is he?
Mostly. Not the he just like McCain, they pop out once in a while with some sound bites, but he's voted for almost all of the awful people on the cabinet. And Democrats too.
Who's surprised the fuck out of me?
Who?
Rand Paul.
I have no tolerance for libertarians. I'm sorry.
I'm not a big fan of libertarians myself, but Rand Paul has been like, no, I'm not down with this. Is voted against because I think libertarians are dire Republicans.
They used to not be.
They used to not
They
be.
used to not be.
They used to actually be a
origination of
party I can
libertarians
respect.
was a third party, but now they are now
dire
Republicans.
Republicans.
Yeah.
But even he is like, I'm not voting for this big, beautiful bill, which
mean,
it's
good on
a
him.
small,
Yeah.
ugly bill.
I want to give credit where credit is due, so good on him. But what else is he voting against? Is what I want to know. Because
He's voted against a lot of shit, surprisingly.
all right,
I think he's more of an old school libertarian than many others. Let me just say that. I'm not a huge fan of his. I mean, anybody that doesn't trust the women and doesn't respect us enough to make our own health
anybody
care.
who sits there
I don't
and,
care what you.
like reads
out.
Atlas Shrugged and is like,
I'm out. But
Yeah.
he is, and you can't say that you're a libertarian and say that you are anti-abortion and anti-women. I'm sorry, you can't.
because either you're against the government being in your business, or you're not.
Right.
And I don't understand how my decision, let's assume for a minute that I still had a uterus. I don't understand how my